So, Adam, we're back. The usual monthly state of play, it looks like this is. And circumstances have changed a lot since we last spoke on the podcast. I don't think we've actually spoken properly since all of this happened. And now we're speaking after the Manchester derby, which is one of my favourite United performances I've seen in years. And I think before the show, we were trying to rank where that was in recent performances, but it was just so nice, so nice to feel like you get a bit of United back on there. How are you doing? Welcome back to the show. Let's talk from the heart, I suppose. Let's if you want to be emotional, let's do it. If you want a point score, let's do it. Whatever. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm so good. Barely slept. Yeah, no, different time here. So couldn't get to sleep straight afterwards, obviously. Just enjoyed the universal positivity, like I was saying to you before we started. On the Twitter list I use, it's not often you get every United fan on there. There's about 500 people, but not all of them United fans. And you were just getting just universal good feeling. And I can't remember the last time that happened, obviously outside of the FA Cup. And we were saying that. And it might be when we beat Barcelona in the Europa League, where it was like, shit, is this I'm not saying that this is a corner turning moment or anything like that, but that feeling that we chase and why we're football fans, and maybe that's the first part of emotional I'm going for here. The reason we support our clubs, like I saw so many videos of people in the stands yesterday, that Old Trafford magic. Yeah. It felt like we got that yesterday. It was something real, 90 minutes. Oh, mate, I'm still buzzing. I will be for a while.
Yeah, even that Barcelona game, I'm thinking back to that. I was at that game. Barcelona scored first that day. I think Lewandowski scored a penalty. You get that feeling from Old Trafford about, yeah, all right, they've turned this around. And they did well in the first leg as well. But Barcelona scored and the result was in jeopardy for a while. City barely had a chance. They had one cleared off the line, really, from Dallo, like from a corner. That was about it. And
their only shot on target.
It's crazy to think. And look, I think there has been a way proven to beat City for a long time. I think Pep's teams have changed in iterations and levels of physicality and height. But you know what Pep ball is. It's possession-based. And Michael Carrick's been sat in the dugout under Ollie, under Mourinho. Ollie specifically had a really good record against Pep. And there's a blueprint to do it. There's a blueprint to beat them. And he lent in. There's been so many conversations. I do want to talk about this in a section on the pod today. There's been so much talk about DNA and stuff. And it's like everything that we wanted to see United do, Carrick managed to do in 3 days. And his coaching staff, to be fair. I think the appointment of Steve Holland, I think, is going to be quite important as well. We'll come back to DNA in a second. How are you feeling in general? Because it's been a rough few weeks. It's always a rough few weeks when we talk about United. We usually reflect on this mid-month, as has been the habit over the course of the season. But Amorim's gone. Fletcher's been in. Carrick's now in. There's a new coaching staff. Ahmad and Mbumo and Mazraoui have gone to AFCON with one coach. They've come back. Everything's changed. Crazy. How are you feeling now? Because we were low, like 48 hours ago, everybody was low. How are you feeling now?
Oh, I mean, look, I think our last podcast was pre-Leeds, I think. It was in that run, the 3 games against the candidates down the bottom where we were supposed to get at least 7 points and got 3. It's sort of amazing. I remember saying to you on that barring something catastrophic happening, Ruben Amorim was going to see out the season, and something catastrophic happened. And my opinion has been the same all the way through since it happened, that he was sacked rightly, but for the wrong reasons. And we don't need to litigate the ownership today. We should ask the questions of ownership every single day. And I don't want to get away from anything Glazer or Ineos related. But the turnaround, and I think Darren Fletcher deserves a bit of credit for the table that he set, that sort of set up the win. You could see similarities in the way that he played to how they played under Michael Carrick. The difference was he didn't have all the personnel back, and Michael Carrick did. But I don't think I can give enough praise to how the team set up and the performance that they put together over 90 minutes. I think the most impressive aspect is that against big clubs for years now, United have stolen wins, but they've never beaten a team from pillar to post, beaten a rival from pillar to post. It's been embarrassing. Their Big Six record has been really bad for a number of years now. But yesterday, it was complete domination. It started with the Harry Maguire chance, and it went from there. And the obvious worry early is that, you're not taking your chances, and more often than not what happens is a silly error or switching off for a moment or just giving up a shot on target for the first time in, say, half an hour. And they go behind, and that didn't happen. And a lot of credit, again, like you said, goes to the staff. There was clearly a lot of belief that the amount of bite they had in all their tackles, it nearly got away from them early. They were so aggressive. Obviously, Diogo Dalot was very lucky not to be red carded. The fact that he was more clumsy than perfect in that tackle might have saved him from a red card. I don't think it should have saved him personally, but can't change that.
It was a red for me. I think they were lucky.
It was a red. I don't think there's 3 offside goals without that not being a red. But like you said as well before we started, it would have been really nice if that third goal stood. I thought it was onside, but being the joy of that win, I would harp on bad decisions. It wasn't the moment to harp on a bad decision, because I remember Mason Mount was running to he was in the corner celebrating, and I was thinking to myself, we have humiliated them, properly humiliated them. They just haven't had a sniff, and that's happened to us so many times. It happened to us at the Etihad earlier this season. We were really, really bad in that game. We did not bother them at all in attack, and you have to say the opposite happened. I mean, the fact that Erling Haaland was substituted sort of summed up the state of the display that City put out, but that happened because of United. It wasn't like, City started really poorly. They were fumbling the ball at their feet. They nearly gave away a couple of goals, I was as loud through a broadcast, obviously, that I can remember the impact Old Trafford must have had. It would have been absolutely rocking in that second half. Just so good, mate. It's so nice to be doing this for a change. So nice.
I know, right? I think since I went full time with this pod, and did, I don't know how many episodes I do a week, like 4, 5, sometimes 6, sometimes more than that, depending on what's happening. That was at the start of last year. So it's been about a year, right? And that's been in an era where we've had Amorim, we've had other coaches. I was doing the podcast then as well, like even before, like on my own. It's just so difficult. It's been so difficult to kind of get up and enjoy talking about United, because everything's been so rubbish. And everyone's had a viewpoint. I think there's still a necessary process that United need to go through, and it will take time. Like, I would love to be able to cling on to this feeling as much as possible, but there will be days, I'm sure, over the course of the next few weeks where things don't go right. But it's so nice to finally, every state of play podcast that we've done has been in, how long is the manager going to last, and this kind of thing. And now it's just nice to see such a convincing win and to record right off the back of that. It's nice to be able to talk about positive things rather than negative things at the moment. Well, all I wanted to see is that level of application, and I think the statement of intent from how the players approach the game from the very beginning, I think that should be there regardless. And I think that is what we should all come to expect from this team. And Michael Carrick, actually, I don't know what you've thought of him over the last few days in terms of what he said. A lot of the messaging he's put out there about it's my responsibility to get the best out of the players, and we have to expect a certain standard, not because of what everybody else says, but we need to expect a certain standard of ourselves, because that is that's what this club is. We need to hold ourselves to higher standards, and that's part of the messaging ahead of this derby. And the way that United approach this game, for me, I don't know whether, I don't think the players lost faith in Amorim specifically in terms and didn't like him or whatever, but there's conversations about the system and that kind of thing, and whether they were used to it or they didn't know what to do in certain situations. Maybe they're second guessing themselves. The approach, though, that Carrick has managed to take over the course of, it's been 3 days, man. He had 3 days worth of training and a few meetings, and we just went back to basics. And all of like talk about DNA and you talk about what United should be. There was fast breaks, from the very beginning, like get into them, smash them, and set the standard. And so often I've seen teams come into games against United and, shake them up a bit. And United haven't been able to live with it. I've seen teams outdo United physically. In this game, complete opposite. And that is as big a part of United DNA as anything for me, And like, I love the Mbeumo's goal. I love counter-attack goals. I think they're some of my favorite things to watch. Like we can go back years and years and years. Some brilliant counter-attack goals. That is what United DNA is. There's lots of elements to it, but it's so refreshing to see it back, even if for a fleeting moment, I suppose.
Well, I think it's sort of put to bed the idea that DNA is not a thing. I don't participate much in the discussion because I don't think it's something you explain. I think it's something you feel and something you see. DNA can't be quantified. When you see it, you know what it is. So all those elements you're talking about, fast attacking football, it can come in many forms. It can come in really fast 9-second transitions end to end that end up in a Bryan Mbeumo goal. It can. What stood out for me was between the City box and the halfway line, United were so intense on the ball. They were so uncompromising. And I think one of the things that United have turned into in recent years is they were obviously easily countered tactically, but they were soft. More often than not, they were soft. And that's not like Casemiro tackling hard. It's that being easy to beat and not willing to put their body on the lines. But what I saw yesterday was they were uncompromising time. And again, that was players setting the tone for one another. There was just a standard set. And yeah, it's like you said, it really, the way Michael Carrick spoke about what he wanted the fans to bring to Old Trafford this weekend and what he expected from the players, it was really simple messaging. We're going to, what can you do in 3 days? And that's also why I wanted to give praise to Darren Fletcher, because that work, and I think that almost why the transition made sense the way that they've done it between Fletcher and Carrick sort of makes sense now. But also I thought that tactically they were much better transitioning between defense and attack. So the way that Patrick Dorgu would work really hard off the ball. So if you watch him on that counter-attacking goal, his run is really important because it stretches out City's outnumbered defense and allows Bruno Fernandes to play a really simple pass. It's just a decoy run, but he has to do 100 meters of gut running just to offer something that's never coming his way. And
there was a lot of that, by the way, as well.
And he did that. Ahmad. He did that the whole time. And Ahmad is there's someone I follow, and he was pointing out that Ahmad is so smart tactically, and he works so hard defensively. So if nothing else, all we can take from the wing-back role is that it has made him so much of a better two-way player. That 50-50 with, who was it? O'Reilly in the early in the second half when they were fighting for the ball and he got the yellow card. He was just kept appearing on either side of him. It's just uncompromising pressing on the ball, just not giving up on the challenge. And he won the ball back and got him a yellow card. What I liked about Dorgu as well is he's really smart at winning fouls. Anthony Taylor was quite aware of his ability to win them, and he almost punished him for it. That challenge in the first half that led to Luke Shaw's booking, that was a foul. It doesn't matter the extent, like the harshness of the foul. He fouled him. He won the ball, got round, and it should have been a free kick, and it could have cost United dearly to have two fullbacks on bookings. Luckily, it didn't. But I don't even remember what the question was. I think it was about DNA.
We're talking about DNA, yeah.
Yeah. It's just all of that. I think that is something. I think the effort and intensity is something that United fans, particularly match-going fans, because of the type of city Manchester is. And this is an external understanding. So I'm not speaking as a local or anything like that. I think that's something a blue-collar city really responds to.
It is so refreshing to see that back. And that is, for me, the minimum. Look, I think there'll be other days where the situation isn't as emotional, and you won't come off the back of changing your manager or did it again, head coach every single week. You know, the circumstances are different. You're going into a derby, you need to prove yourself. But in terms of like how they approach the game and the snap that they had in tackles, you know, we've already spoke about Dallow and the yellow card that could have been a red, which I think is legit. Maybe the day would have been different if that had been given. Luke Shaw got the yellow as well. And you think after 80 or 10 minutes and you got 80 left or whatever, and both your fullbacks against Mainoo and Doku have bookings, that's a fine line to tread throughout the rest of the day. The way that they approached, the fact that they did snap into tackles like that and actually towed the line, it set the stall out. And that is, for me, the approach that United should go in with. I want to see them want to win every game. That's been the thing for me that's bothered me, is I haven't seen enough of that. And I think there's a right question to ask, really. And I think it's been asked a few times. Like I've seen Match of the Day and stuff have talked about this. Why weren't they doing that last week? You know, is that a fair concern? You know,
I think it's always a fair concern, because when you're playing so few games, how can the application be less? But I think the mental aspect and that fragility has been a problem with the players for a long time. I don't think that's something that's magically going to fix itself. I think something with where the team is right now, outside the title race, let's just say that, so a contender for European football, is that they are going to have inevitable flaws. So they aren't going to bring it. It's hard to say on a week-to-week basis, because I think they are a little bit better than that. But you don't always know what you're going to get. So the question from here is, how do they sustain that? How do you manufacture that intensity and effort when it's not coming from a purely emotional place? So it's on the players to be better at their own self-motivation, but that's going to be something for Michael Carrick as well. When there's 16 games left, how do you keep it from being almost like a conditional application? Like, you can't just turn up for the big games. And that's been a criticism for a little while now, because the intensity does drop off when maybe not everyone's watching.
There's definitely, we're talking about the challenges of sustaining that. There's definitely going to be games where there will be teams that come to Old Trafford and just say, hey, here you go, have the ball, come and break us down. And City will never take that approach. I think they did it for like a little while against Arsenal early in the season, and it was a little bit weird to see that happen. But generally, you know what City are. You know what Pep's approach to football is. It's keep possession. And a lot of the possession that they had, I think it was over 70 or 69, 68% or whatever it was, a lot of that possession ended up pointless because of how United defended and how close they were together and the intensity that they were playing with. But look, there will be times over the next few weeks where the onus is on United to go and break teams down. And I think that's the challenge, really. It's how can Carrick and the coaching staff adapt to different situations. I think you have the bottom line of this is the approach that you take, and this is the intensity that you need to play with. But I do have a bit of encouragement, like with Amorim, and maybe I don't know if you want to speak on him in a section to come or whatever, but with Amorim, you knew this was the way that he was going to do it. And Carrick has said numerous times this week that there'll be some games where we play a little bit differently and we have to look at the opposition and you have time to prepare. So I do have a little bit more optimism. We need to see what happens. I think there's a stretch of games in February, right, which you get past this Arsenal game. You've seen the games in February. Like, there's 5 games. I think you've got Fulham, Tottenham at home, Everton, West Ham away, and then another, I think it might be Palace.
No, just the 4. Just the 4.
Is it 4?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a run of games there. And like, look, we've looked at runs all season and thought, well, you can get 12 points from this run. And then they just haven't done it. But you knew what the approach was with Amorim. Carrick has openly admitted he's willing to change. And as much as United do need to have a certain approach that you can identify with, it does need to be interchangeable in a sense. And I suppose that's part of United DNA as well. And Carrick has already taken that on his shoulders and said he's going to run with it. So hopefully we see something different in the approach to these games where United expected to win over the next few weeks. I'm speaking in hope, though, at the moment.
Yeah, of course. We have 90 minutes to look back on. We don't have a massive sample size yet. And I have to apologise. You were right about Palace. That game is in March for me at 2 a.m. on the 1st. It is not in Feb. It is not in March for you. So no, it's really interesting when you look at that, because look at those 3 home games, right? So Tottenham will play front foot. under Thomas Frank. I think I would expect them.
He might be gone by then.
I would expect them, but it's not for a few weeks. Things can change very quickly. It's about a month.
Glasner's going to go as well. Like, yeah, what he said.
Well, the fact that Palace didn't know that was coming, everyone seems to be doing the Maresca. He seemed to have set a trend that managers speak up for themselves. I mean, Glasner's not going to have a problem getting another job, but let's just if it's Glasner's Palace, even if it isn't, I would expect Fulham and Palace in particular to set up to play back foot football.
Yeah,
and that's going to be really difficult for United because they have struggled against that. A lot of teams are struggling against that. You've spoken about this. How many teams play consistent attacking football that breaks down low blocks? These are good challenges because we're going to get answers and it's going to help us identify what exactly they need to improve on going into next season. Do they have everything they need in attack? Who's going to win the battle for spots? I think one of the things that stood out to me when I saw the 11 yesterday is that we actually had depth on the bench. And I know that it looks like Benjamin Sesko was sick and couldn't play. But nevertheless, we had a variety of options to change the game in Cunha, Mount, and Sesko. And we haven't had that in a while. I think it's easy to forget that in an environment where we're only playing Premier League games, we actually have a bit of variety. It's just when these injuries and absences hit all at once, all felt like we had no depth again. But that'll be an interesting test. And then West Ham away, they're fighting for their lives. They can't really afford to play back foot football. They need results. They need to win as many home games as they can. And Everton, I mean, that's Moyes. So I would expect that to be a bit of a dogfight. That'll be crap. But another thing about like United, and everyone says this when they talk about Sir Alex, is like we don't romanticize the fact that they played beautiful football every week. Sometimes he was the pragmatist. Sometimes he perfectly understood.
He played 4-5-1 in the Champions League, like a fair bit,
that first leg against Barcelona in 2008. They stole a goal via Paul Scholes and just played backs to the wall football. Sometimes you've just got to do what you got to do. And Carrick plays quite two-way, where he is pragmatic. And so I don't think, like, Ole is a much more attacking coach. And I saw someone who's quite good with tactics explaining why Steve Holland would be good, because he would actually tighten up the defensive issues a little bit. And I think we kind of saw that because third clean sheet of the season and the fact that they had one shot on target, we weren't giving up big chances. So, like, you're always going to be nervous when with City are within 30 yards. Once they're playing the ball around, stretching the game out, stretching the final third out, you're going to be nervous. I know I was. But they defended really well. And considering, I mean, it probably shows the impact of having someone like Harry Maguire back because of the way he solidifies things down there and what we've missed in Matthias Delit and his box defending, which is just elite. It's definitely his best skill. But we just look so much better defensively. It was so refreshing for me because that's what was driving me insane. And that's been the thing I've talked about when people have quoted me stats on Amorim. You can pick out the attacking stuff. It is really good, but the defensive stuff was as worse or equally worse, or perhaps considering some of his defensive metrics were as bad as anything, they were arguably worse than the attacking results were good.
Yeah. Look, maybe we'll talk about him a little bit on him because we haven't spoke since he left. I think for me, like, I do agree with you, really. I think the circumstances around why he was sacked was probably the wrong ones. But you know, I've had conversations with you. People know my feelings on Amorim if you've been listening to the pod for any amount of time. I just thought he would get to the end of the season without any flashpoints, and we'd reassess. But when stuff goes down like that, then I don't think they had to make the decision that they made. I was disappointed for a while because you just think, oh, where are they going to go now? Where are they going to turn next? And to me, when the options came up and you bring Carrick in, I thought, like, I didn't know what to expect out of this derby at all. I thought we could get a performance like that. I thought United could get smashed 3-0. But what Carrick did and what his coaches have done, Steve Holland, we've touched on him a couple of times, the work that he's done previously with Chelsea and with England, there's a different conversation around on Southgate, but what England were for a long time was defensively solid, right? And I think he's got a mean streak to him, as we've seen with some of the things that have happened in the England camp. And, you know, But I think that's part of what United have needed. It's just simple basics, really. Is you have your two banks of four, and they play close together, and you're kind of hard to break down, and you work in pairs like that. It's back to basics in a sense.
Yeah, I think the thing with Amorim is, so he tightened up the defense as in we stopped conceding a record amount of shots, which was the big problem under Ten Hag. It wasn't just the shot quality, it was the fact that the donut midfield, the donut hole, I would say, in midfield was just so concerning. The thing for me with Amorim defensively is that we would give up really bad, high-quality shots. And so I'm not really fussed if you're cutting down on shots, if you're giving up high shot quality, because it's just giving up one bad thing for another. It's the probability of another team scoring versus giving them a high probability of scoring. It's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. And they just look so much better. So the way that Kobbie Mainoo, at times when they would press forward, they were in a 4-1-4-1 and they would defend in a 4-4-2. At times with Bruno Fernandes pushing up really high alongside Brian and Mbumo. The way that front line with Dorgu and Ahmad pressed up and defended as a front four. The way that Ahmad and Dorgu would work so hard defensively as really advanced wide men, but then defend really deep to help against Doku and Semenyo. So it was defeating them with the outnumber, which is a real trick. And that is one thing about City is for all their talent, they aren't super athletically gifted across the entire squad. They have athletic players, particularly out wide. That's why you had to get two players outnumbering.
Let me ask you this question. I saw some, you're going to have revisions and you're going to have point scoring and this kind of thing. I did see an article, I didn't read it, but I can't remember where it was from, but this performance under Michael Carrick showed just how much of a waste the last 14 months was under Ruben Amorim. Do you subscribe to that? I don't personally. I don't personally, but
too soon to say. Yeah, I don't think you can just say that off 90 minutes. I don't think we need to get into that much, right? I think you can do a certain level of point scoring that the sacking is justified. That they're setting by making this decision now, they're getting sooner stuck into their future than waiting till the end of the season. I don't think we can go that far, but what I would say is it was their best performance since before Amorim was coach. I was about to say manager, before he was coach. And that's an indictment, but we do have to consider the factors within that, the desecration of the squad over time, the fact that he had the worst squad of any manager post Sir Alex.
There's a ruthlessness there as well. That mean streak, I think, the whole bomb squad thing. I'm not saying that all of them were the right decisions.
Had positives and negatives, right? So like in the Athletics, Now They Tell Us article, it spoke about how the club was concerned about the money that cost them. Well, they backed that in. So they backed in Amorim. So they can't really lay that on him now because they gave him the rope to do that. But the one he got right was, for example, I've said this constantly as well, I'm never going to regret moving on Alejandro Garnacho. I don't care how many goals he scores as a sub or 2 goals against Arsenal in the Carabao Cup. I don't give a shit because those are the sorts of players we need players pulling in the same direction because the only way the club gets back on track with the small margin of room for error is they need to get all their signings right. They need the culture, a complete revamp. And while Amorim wasn't perfect in that aspect and he made mistakes, there are a lot of things he did do right. The one thing I would say that I've spoken about a little bit that I've hated on social media is that people are putting up Ruben Amorim as this martyr. I think that the protests and his sacking are not linked in the way that people would like to think they are. He engineered himself getting sacked. He didn't do that for the club. He did that so he would get a payout because he told Jason Wilcox in that meeting he wanted to go. It doesn't matter where that leak came from. It doesn't matter.
A long way from saying I'll leave for nothing. I feel at the start.
Yeah, it just. I think I could go through if I was talented enough with editing video, and I'm not. I'm only good at making screenshots of people's shit tweets. You can marry up so many things that he said and things that he did that didn't make 1 + 1 = 2. So I don't think. Like I did my last thought on Amorim the other day. It was very long. It was practically an article. and I'm done.
Hey, if you can get £1 million for an article on $1 million for an article on X nowadays, that's the competition they're running. So keep it going.
Is it? Well, no, I don't think I'll be getting that. I'll just I'll keep up my dissertations and my rants and just leave it there. But I think that's about it for me. I'm really ready to move forward, but I do hate that there's people who were rooting for the team to lose under Darren Fletcher and were using it as a reason to be like, hey, look, we were right. Shouldn't have sacked Amorim, because the results weren't going to get an instant uptick. All those things aren't fixed overnight. The squad still has a heap of issues.
There may be a result in the next few weeks where, United draw 1-1 with Fulham and then it goes the other way. To me, like the way that I'm looking at this, if you've, like you say, if you've listened to the podcast for any amount of time, you know my feelings on Amorim. What I want and what people should want is just the team to be in a good spot. And the thing that I will carry all the time is I think there is an issue down the line that may crop up again. Like Carrick did an extremely good job of getting the players to respond. But what happens after that initial impact wears off? That's the worry that I will have, and I'll carry that. I would hope United go and win as many games as possible for the rest of the season. I don't have to talk about it, but the issue will always be there. And I worry that it will come back at some point, and the club need to stamp out that and need to raise expectations and standards to the point where that doesn't happen again. And I don't know if that will happen, and I'm waiting to see that. But look, we talked about Amorim there, and some things he's got right, some things he's got wrong. Let's just look forward and want the best for United. Like what we saw on Saturday was brilliant. That's what we want to see. And one of the big things that Amorim got wrong in many people's eyes was Kobbie. And first start of the Premier League season, just tell me your thoughts, because there's that video going around. I saw it at the time where he feints past Mainoo, and it's like, that was fun, wasn't it? See you later. And he
sent him
great.
Back to Bournemouth. It was brilliant.
Yeah, he was great.
I think for a first start of the season, considering it's not like he was thrown into it. He's now a relatively experienced player, and he's been on that stage before against that team and done pretty well. But I thought he was great. I thought he was really good defensively, and I think he does things that I think he's probably in that game. He showed some improvement defensively. He allowed Casemiro to actually push up further. They worked really well in sync. Bruno Fernandes worked quite well with them as well. And Patrick Dorgu at times was right in there with them. That's how hard he was working all over the place. So was Diogo Dalot. They're both taking turns to invert to give them extra numbers. And I thought he was great. So I don't think he was close to man of the match or anything like that, but he showed exactly why people have wanted him to play. Manuel Ugarte has never played as well as Kobbie Mainoo played yesterday. So that's enough for me. So people were ready to sell Kobbie because for Ruben Amorim, good luck to you. Good luck to you.
I wasn't.
No, not you. Not you. I would never say that to you. Not you know that. I'm talking to the people who likely don't listen to a podcast like this. And I thought it was really promising, and it's one of the reasons that I am honestly glad that Amorim is gone. It's not like I choose a player over a coach, but I do choose the club over a coach. And I thought what is best for the club was for Kobbie to stay, and I'm really glad that he is.
Bruno as well, playing back in the 10 like this, just
unbelievable. I could wax on Bruno for as long as I would be allowed. He was by far the best player on the pitch yesterday.
Do you think? I couldn't give you I don't know who my player of the match was. I don't know. Did Casemiro get it?
Yeah, Casemiro got it.
Yeah, Bruno was brilliant though. Like seeing him carry the ball forward and having it's like the Red Arrows, having players and runners around him just in the lead up to that Mbeumo goal. The weight of the pass was perfect, but that's what he is. That's what he can do in the profile of the position that he plays, and even deeper, the numbers that he was bringing up were just incredible. But for the rest of the season, At the least. I don't know what will happen with him in the summer. Maybe you can capture his imagination again and he will play in that 10 and he gives you another year or whatever. I don't know. But there's nobody better. Seriously.
He stays if they make the Champions League, I think. I think if they don't, he goes. I think it's probably as simple as that if I had to call it right now. I think you give him a reason to stay. Otherwise, he goes and chases bigger trophies with teams who are ready to compete now. He's been denied that too long because of his loyalty. He's said this yesterday and then deleted it because I didn't want it on the timeline, but he's turned down offers, a couple from Spain that have never broken publicly. We've been really lucky to have a player like him for so long, and he can do so much from deep areas, and a lot of his chance creation in that deep role came from set pieces because the team was really, particularly early in the season, so set piece focused. That's where we're getting a lot of their goals from. But his work in open play yesterday, that ball for what I thought was going to be Brian and Bruno actually ended up being Patrick Dorgu, off balance, first time on his right foot. He looked like David Beckham. It was extraordinary. I loved it. But one of the things where you're saying you didn't know who the man of the match was, that is arguably one of the best things about the performance. Yeah. It wasn't Marcus Rashford carrying the team. It wasn't Bruno Fernandes carrying the team. It wasn't anything like that. It wasn't Casemiro in that first year at the club where he was just arguably as good as any midfielder in the Premier League. That was a full team performance. Even Diogo Dalot and Luke Shaw, who I didn't think were as good as the other players, I didn't think the fullbacks were the strongest point of the game. They all did something that contributed. The fact that those two fullbacks were part of a back four that did what they did, that was the same back four that I don't know if you saw before the game where people were posting that was the same back four that Ten Hag started with starting the season against, was it Fulham. Brighton back in the day, or Brighton or Brentford? It was one of the teams. People were posting that, and that was the back four from that game. It just shows you what coaching can do.
Yeah, well, look,
and motivation. Like, it's not just coaching. So that's just I need to put terms, conditions, and everything I say apparently these days. So it's not just coaching, motivation, team cohesion, working together, and executing the basics at a really high level. All of that.
I was going to come to this last, but maybe I'll do it now. United obviously need a new coach. They will. They'll make a decision on it. We know Carrick's in there until the end of the season. And the question is going to be, every time he wins a game, well, why don't you give it to him? You know? Like, I wanted, initially when we were planning to do this, I wanted to do like a run through of all the manager options that were out there. Yeah. Maybe that's something we can hold off and do in the weeks to come. But to me, I don't think it's too early to ask that question. I think it's a case for him to build, because this is, I want to get your thoughts in a second, but my feeling on this is United they would probably be much better off going and getting a Tuchel or something like that because of how proven he is. But we've seen great coaches come to this club and absolutely flop and fall under the pressure. And, well, they don't get United. They're not playing the right way. And we've seen the Ollie emotional train where he has a really good run of results as an interim, gets a contract, and then results drop off and the people are split on style of play and this kind of thing. How do you feel at the moment? Do you think it's too early to ask that question about Carrick? How are you feeling about it? Because I've seen Gary Neville go on his podcast and say, yeah, Carrick absolutely cannot get it. No way. United need to go get somebody else. I don't think it's that cut and dry, personally.
I don't give a shit what Gary Neville thinks. He can say what he likes. I don't think he has the best interests of the club at heart. I think he's so conflicted now. And I think that's a discussion within itself and all that sort of thing. But when it comes to Carrick, it's a tricky one, right? So I think that it is too soon to say that, like, he's a contender for the job or anything like that. But I don't think you can close the door on it. I think that things can change. You don't know what's going to happen with the candidates. What's going to happen with the, let's say, for example, with the consultancy that they'll probably run to start figuring out their process to go through with the candidates. What if that uncovers that certain coaches aren't going to be interested because of the framework they want to put around them, and they don't want to give up transfer control because that's not the model they're running anymore? So it can change pretty quickly. So I think the way that I would answer it is that Michael Carrick can put himself in the frame for the role as in that group below all the contenders, all the main contenders. So Nagelsmann, Tuchel, Carlo Ancelotti. That level of candidate, I'm not saying so specific people, but just as an example, below that group is where he can enter the conversation. But the way I will say as well, the way that I've seen this for him, with him coming in, is this is his springboard to set up the rest of his managerial career. Mm-hmm. So I think he understands what this is, but I don't think anyone is fully closed off to anything happening. I'm not talking about fans, because fans will have their own opinion. They're much firmer down the line. I think when it comes to the club and Carrick, they understand this is a mutually beneficial arrangement. But so much can change. So much can change in a week. A disastrous result against Fulham is like, how the fuck we're ever thinking this? Yeah, that's what people will be saying. Not what we'll be saying. Just what you were saying about how quickly one bad result can change things. But I think it's an open question. It's an open question we should continue having, because it's the way that we can also track how that conversation changes.
Yeah. Never too high, never too low is the approach that I
guess. Never too low.
Never too low has been. It's been so nice.
Well,
I asked the question yesterday. It's like, God, do I have to now take a never too high tone and just bring people down a little bit after that? People like, nah, man, just go for it. It's fun, and that's because I felt so overjoyed at that yesterday. And Carrick,
I loved your ecstatic tweet. I loved it. Just that's a really good summary. So I don't have to craft like this really beautiful original thought or thing that's going to change people's minds on Twitter. This is just what I'm feeling, and that euphoria, that thing that we chase. Yeah. I loved that.
You can follow us on social, by the way, if you're just coming across this podcast. The links are in the description. For me, I just don't want the club to make an emotional decision. I think that's it. Cool heads. Carrick there are things that he gets about the club, and he's implemented those things straight away. If he shows that he's got a bit of flexibility about him, and like he says, and he can go in and has the players to pick teams and pick low blocks apart, the conversation changes completely. But let's see. I think that's a question, like you say, that we'll continue asking.
Oh, I think it's a good question. The thing about it is how much fan pressure is a tricky thing, because you should listen to your fan base, but also there are times that you should not listen to your fan base. And when it comes to the choice of coach, you should not give into pressure and just run a process. Please, for the love of God, football clubs are terrible at running processes to pick coaches. They get so fixated on one person. Find the best fit. Just please find the best fit. If Julian Nagelsmann's my top candidate, but if he's not the best fit, so be it. Yeah.
And look, Carrick didn't score the winning goal in the Champions League final. So, maybe the emotional part of things, he's not that emotional a guy either. You
see him walking off. I love that.
Yeah,
let off a couple of fist pumps.
Yeah, the hug.
Even when he came out, he did a bit of this. I like that. The one thing I would say as well, I keep losing this train of thought that I had about the bringing an ex-player in or someone who understands the club. I think that's quite unique to Manchester United as an interim. I think that at the scale of the job, it means that you can't just bring in anyone. You actually have to bring in someone who understands what they're walking into. And unfortunately, that list is really small. So you can do the Roy Keane jobs for the boys remark. You can complain about the backroom staff being brought in for what's a 4-month job, and that's really hard to assemble those people. The fact they got a candidate as, let's say, as decorated or as experienced as Steve Holland is good work. And the fact that Wilcox and Carrick agreed on that, that's good. For all the flaws and criticisms that we have of the club, we can sometimes understand why decisions are made. Not everything has to be torn apart. But yeah, that's one thing I just wanted to add that I think people miss is that you can just go jobs for the boys, but good luck finding an interim who understands what they're walking into and is able to do the job is just a really hard thing. And
the kind of player he was, I think, works in his favor. I think he was very, very intelligent. He showed at Middlesbrough. I know, not everybody followed his time at Middlesbrough. Unless they're a Middlesbrough fan, I think you're pretty much lying if you know exactly how that went down. But I had a good insight from Graham on the pod the other day, and he was absolutely right about how
he was great.
Well. So it's good to hear that he was optimistic, and I'm holding the optimism as well. Now, final question of the pod. Last week, there was lots of, United desperately need a midfielder. They have to get a midfielder, otherwise they're throwing the season out the window. They just beat City with Kobbie and Casemiro in there. But there's a depth issue there, obviously. Casemiro, the legs, obviously a concern. I don't think he will stay, really, even though there's that clause in his contract. I don't think he'll end up staying. Especially on the terms that he's on, definitely not.
He won't hit the trigger. That was like a non-story to me because they just won't let him hit it.
They might not sign a midfielder. I know there's been a bit of mystery about some mystery midfielder that they're talking to over the last few days. I don't think they will. But with that result now and where we were 72 hours ago, 48 hours ago, compared to where we are now, and we've seen that United are capable of doing that against City, has your outlook changed for the rest of the season? Do you feel as though... I think, like I said this on the pod the other day, I'm still judging United on... There's an opportunity there. It got top 4, top 5. And that shouldn't change for me. Do you share that? Do you feel like the club are letting him down if they're not getting a midfielder? What's your outlook for the rest of the season?
I don't know if it's letting him down as much as it's letting themselves down. I understand, Jamie from the finance pod on NQAT has outlined why he doesn't want a permanent signing to come in, just a financial prudence aspect.
I'm with that. I'm on that camp.
Alone, I am open to, just because I believe you can find a player who will be a better first up off the bench option than Manuel Ugarte. And Casemiro's age, Kobbie Mainoo's had injuries in the past 18 months. That is such a drop-off from one of those two. Let's just say they're going to play a 4-2-3-1 the rest of the way, or a similar two where those two are going to be your starting two midfielders. I would need some insurance there. I personally would look in the loan market because I don't believe a permanent signing is going to happen. I believe that they should have tried to get one. That hasn't changed based upon yesterday, because that is only a reminder to me of what they can be versus what they can't be if one of those players is missing, or both, because we've had availability issues now, strike over the holiday period. That can happen again. It's great that Casemiro will likely play one game a week the rest of the way. There's a 4-day break in between, I think, the West Ham and Everton game maybe. Yeah. There's a 4-day break in that late February period. So it's not always going to be like that. So if it were me, I would be doing everything I can, because that opportunity for Champions League is right there. And what that can do for the rebuild is the same opportunity that the Europa League final gave last season. You cannot miss it a second time round. It could be a real death knell in this stage of the rebuild.
Might trawl around a little bit and try and find loan options for them and start putting them forward on. So, look, I agree with you. Like, there is an opportunity there. If you can find a low cost option that will help, absolutely. But I share the point, really. I don't think United should go and... My take on this is, if you have cash there and you're looking to keep it dry because you want to get Baleba, Elliot Anderson, I don't know, he might go somewhere else. But I think Baleba's, if they wanted to go get him at this moment in time, I think they can do it, regardless of whether they get Champions League or Europa League or not. Maybe they need to raise money in another way through a sale or something like that if they don't get Champions League. But I think that one is achievable. And ultimately, I don't want them to burn through that money and leave themselves short in order to get one of those targets down the line.
There's a balancing act that they have to execute. And I think the thing, like, a couple of people have been like, if you can go after Semenyo, if you can go after Baleba late in the window last time in the summer, why can you not do it again? And the thing that I would say to those people, although I'm advocating for one signing, I understand that that money is predicated on where they finish in the league. So the plans that they make are predicated on a finish in the league that guarantees revenue, matchday hospitality, broadcast revenue, all of that shit. And it's such a stark difference between even Champions League and Europa League that United's finances are also in a spot where they can no longer live a Champions League lifestyle on a Europa League diet, or worse. So they've burned through those funds, and while they have a heap of headroom when it comes to whether you want to call it FFP, PSR, squad cost rules, all of that, they've got heaps of room. they have a cash flow problem, which they've had since COVID. That is not going to get fixed until they're making Champions League year on year. So they'll get some sales in, but those also are not guaranteed. United are not. United, their prudency means they don't have an appetite for risk financially, because we have owners that are tight asses, but also their cash situation means they don't have an appetite for it either. So there's context, Scott. We've been saying it all season. Doesn't matter what the subject is. There's context there.
That's the thing for me. Prudency at this moment in time, I think, is purposeful for a defined period. They've been trying to cut losses and stop the club leaking money. And I don't think you'll see the fruits of the labor of that for maybe. I was looking at 2026, summer 2026. If they get Champions League and they manage to, all those cuts actually come to fruition and they can raise some cash, I think they'll be in a much better position moving forward past 2026, personally. It's just we're all caught in this moment of this still tightening the purse strings a little bit, and you've got no European football this season and the revenue that comes with it. So it's a bit of a difficult moment. I don't think we'll be there forever, personally.
Well, add that into ownership questions. So whenever something goes wrong with the club, the biggest root cause of that is the ownership. So whenever people have frustrations of the club, like so in an inability or unwillingness to spend, that should be directed at the owners too. But it adds a level of vitriol to every decision that we're not happy with. So we can't discuss it too rationally. Does that make sense? Like it makes adding that context and nuance in there really hard, because then you're labeled a sympathizer or pro-glazer or some, like people have been calling me, like I've had people saying like that I'm justifying all that. And I was like, no, I'm just trying to explain it. If you can show me any tweet ever that I've supported the Glazers, I will go and delete my account, but you won't find it.
Yeah. Like we all know where we stand on the Glazers. Just for me, I know Ineos have got a lot of stick. I gave them stick the other day, but I still think the measures that they've taken are for the best of the club in the long term. We're just not seeing it at the moment. And I don't think that I think Andy Mitten asked this the other day, like, be careful what you wish for, because there's a real chance if who else is out there to buy? Like the state offer never came in. It was talk.
Still waiting on that one.
Still waiting. It never came in. What's the alternative? Private equity? No. We spoke about that in the last pod, actually. That's what it'll take a consortium. There are very few willing buyers on the planet who have the individual financing to buy the club. You can even see someone as rich as Sir Jim Ratcliffe, because of his wealth. He has so much wealth separate from Ineos, but even someone like that would have so much difficulty in buying the club outright. And I didn't want to get into that, because you can't discuss that at the moment with anyone. You just can't. You cannot, because people refuse to separate. Like I've had people saying Ineos are worse than the Glazers. And so I've just stopped talking about it. Let's stop talking about it.
Until there's news to really talk about, I'm just going to focus on what's happening on the pitch, and the protest before Fulham, things like that. Though that's all really important, fans having a voice. But it's really hard when there's so much time between games. But that's what we have so much to focus on right now, and the run into the rest of the season. It's really important. So maybe we can order our priorities a little bit differently.
Final question, in one word or two. Do you think they get Champions League?
Yes, I do.
Me too, personally. And that's not off the basis of, it might be a little bit off the basis of yesterday.
I've believed it the whole time. It reinforced my belief. As I said at the start of the pod, that performance reinforced the belief I had that this squad was more than capable.
Nice to have a bit of belief back. Adam, thank you very much for joining me. My voice is gone. I went to a gig last night on Saturday, and I think the energy of my voice is dissipating a little bit. So I think it's the right time to end the pod.
Had some euphoria to wear off.
Yes, it was a great day, Saturday. Adam, thank you very much for joining the podcast. Appreciate it as always. Any final words?
No, this was the best podcast we've done yet outside of the transfer ones, because that was a really good time. I hope that, being that we're trying to do this a little bit more regularly than the once a month, that we're going to have increasingly more optimistic conversations that can be well received. luckily you've built a great audience that do understand what you're trying to do. So I think we'll get that.
Shout out to the audience. Thank you, everyone. My voice is gone. This has to end. Thank you, Adam. Thank you, everyone. Subscribe to the channel, like the video, 5-star reviews, all that kind of stuff. And follow us on social. Links are in the description. See you soon. It's good to talk about United in a positive sense again. Thanks very much.